Hey, what's going on everyone? Today we have the second patch of set 17. A lot of things have moved around, so we gotta get right to it. So in the S tier right now, we have 3 comps that I'm really liking. We have Dark Stars, we have Brawler YI, and we also have Primordian Reroll. So a couple of different options there, different cost levels as well. In the A tier, we have Vex Fast 9, Urgot Reroll, Twisted Fate Reroll, Leona Teemo Reroll, Ezreal Cho'Gath Reroll, lots of reroll, and then we also still have Xayah, Corki Riven, and Vanguard Leblanc. The S and A tiers are what I recommend right now. Pretty much there's room for every single one of these comps in your games because there are just so many of them, right? In the B tier, we have 7 Shepherd, Nova, Space Groove Riven, Lulu, Rogue Reroll, Misfortune Reroll, Meeple Veigar, Jhin Fast 9, Mecha, and Samira Reroll. And then Viktor, don't play Viktor anymore. He got very gutted, so that's what I would avoid right now. But let's get on into each and every single one of these comps. We're going to cover how to play them, some general tips, and pretty much everything you need to be looking out for. So first, let's start off with 6 Dark Star. You primarily want to look to play this if you have the Dark Star emblem, and if you also have some item augments, because there's a lot of people to itemize here. There are also multiple variants of this comp, but pretty much the 2 main ones right now are going to be rogues and snipers. So you could play around either having Riven as your emblem holder, or you could end up having Xayah and Jhin be your carries. Both versions works, depends what items you're getting. Like if you have Rageblade or something like that, then you want to go more towards the Xayah. If you have more of the melee items, go more towards the Riven. Oftentimes when you go for emblem augments also, you might get a bunch of random emblems. So if you get 1 Dark Star, 1 of something else, you might need to mix and match and choose your carry based on whatever your second emblem is. And also you need to check which units are being contested because some other people might be going Riven, some other people might be going Xayah. So if something's really taken, you might need to go for the other carry. But during stage 1, you want to be slamming either Xayah or Riven items as they'll set you up pivoting into the mid game. But the base of the board is just going to be 6 Dark Star plus a couple of complementary units, generally going to be Nunu, Pantheon, and whoever your carry is. Nunu is going to be the key point here. Instead of Pantheon in the sniper version, you go for Jax and Shen. But the reason why Nunu is so important is because you just need a tank, right? Not too many tanks in this set, and that's just what's going to set you up to have a really strong front line. But moving on into stage 3, you want to just continue by adding more and more Dark Star units into your board. Like you'll have something maybe like 4 Dark Star at that point. Very easy to hit, especially if you have the emblem. And then in stage 4, you just want to hit level 8, generally around stage 4-2, and hit a 2-star carry. That's really all you got to do. One thing to note is that Dark Star gives a lot of AD and AP, so you pretty much want to pair the emblem with things that give different stats. So for Xayah, it's going to be attack speed. For Riven, it's going to be more defensive items and a healing item. Also, one thing to note is that the emblem makes this comp very easy to play, but it's by no means like absolutely mandatory. It just means you need to be able to hit Jhin to get to 6 Dark Stars. So obviously that's pretty difficult to do in a guaranteed sense. So that's why I like playing this with the emblem. But if you get a ridiculous Dark Star start and then get an early Jhin, you can definitely play this without the emblem. But it does create a little bit of risk for you if you do that. But if you have something like aura farming Jhin, then you could definitely hard force this comp, or pretty much any way that kind of guarantees that you get Jhin sometime during the game. But overall, very powerful comp. Really like this right now. Other items you need to pay attention to is pretty much just the Protector's Vow on Nunu. It's just his best items. Luckily, you don't really need tier in too many other things. Maybe just like a healing item for Riven. Kai'Sa items don't matter as much. It kind of just depends what state in the game you're in on who to itemize. Like obviously in the late game, you want to put items on Jhin, but in the mid game, Kai'Sa can kind of be the item holder. But let's move on into the next comp, which is going to be Brawler YI. There's also a psionic version, but I highly recommend just sticking with the Brawler version. This one just works around 4 Brawler, 4 Marauder, and you're just playing pretty solid units. It's going to be a 4-cost comp here. So Master Yi, Tahm Kench, and Kindred, those are the 3 units you really only care about. They're going to be who you itemize. And the best part about this comp is that you could use all sorts of different emblems whenever you play this. The reason why is because you're running so many traits and you don't actually care about the other units that much. But pretty much if you get any sort of attack damage psionic item, you're good to go. The best one's going to be Malware Matrix, and other options going to be Target Lock Optics. But pretty much the most important thing to do whenever you're playing Yi is to build an Edge Knight on him. He absolutely needs this item because it helps him just live for forever. If you can't get an Edge Knight, build a Quicksilver, and then for his next best item, it's going to be a Giant Slayer. Giant Slayer just allows him to not get hard stuck on a tank because that's pretty much the only way this comp loses. Speaking of losing, do not play this comp from lose streak. You will have an incredibly bad time. You need to be winning when you play this comp. because you don't have some like late game win out like the other comps have. If you haven't noticed yet, like not too many legendaries here. It's not that you don't like them, but it's just harder to fit them in here compared to other builds. Like if we look at the Darkstar build, Jhin just naturally fits into the comp, right? And then you play one random legendary such as Shen, and that's a very easy way to fit in two legendaries. But in this other Brawler YI comp, like there's no 5-cost brawler, you know? So that's why it's kind of hard to fit it into this build. But that's a good thing about emblems. If you get an emblem, you could save a unit slot on something else and then run one of the random legendaries with the emblem on it. But if you ever do get an early game where you're able to slam either the attack speed items or kindred or one of the Yi items and kind of just roll with it. One thing to note is that this comp does change up a lot based on what random emblems you get. Like if you get Trait Tree or Spreading Roots, you're going to have to adapt this comp a bit. But if you don't get them, just play around with 4 Brawler, 4 Marauder. You could add in a Fiora later. She's a good way to kind of get into the late game. And then you could just drop in any random legendary to complement your team. But keep in mind, like, apart from Fiora, like, Fiora can carry. But the other legendaries that you play, they're more as, like, support units. They're not going to be something that really shines because, again, you're not really running the traits for them, such as in the Jhin comp. But I recommend doing something like maybe a Shen or a Morgana. These two units are going to help Yi out immensely, as they just give him a bunch of buffs, which in turn keeps him alive for a little bit longer. In the super duper duper late game, you could also replace Kindred with Vex, because they use similar items. Vex really likes a Rage Blade, and then like Giant Slayer can go on anyone. So if you do get a Vex 2 randomly, you can kind of pivot out of this comp and into that. Next build up we have is Primordian Reroll. This is going to be a 1-cost reroll into 2 costs. You're going to be focused on Briar, Rek'Sai, and Bel'Veth as your main carries, and then you may be asking why the position is so awkward. Pretty much you want to put on either the top left or top right because her passive provides her attack speed based on missing HP, and then Rogue also provides an aggro drop. So pretty much she takes some damage, drops below a certain HP, and then gets a small attack speed buff. This also helps her stack her Titans, and like she'll pretty much be guaranteed not to get one shot because she is a rogue. So that's why you kind of position weirdly like this. I promise you it is not a mistake. After that, you want to focus on tank items on Rek'Sai. Pretty much it's going to be your utility holder with the Sunfire Cape. Could also put an Even Shroud. And then just random tank items are going to do pretty well. Tier items are pretty good because you don't really use tier in anything else. That's why the Vow and the Spear Visage is going to be pretty nice on Rek'Sai. And then on Bel'Veth, all about attack speed. So Quicksilver, going to give her infinite uptime. And then Kraken Slayer, just like a really good comp to just any auto attacker out there. After that, we play fill in the traits. So we get Kai'Sa, we get Kindred for Challenger, we get Akali for Marauder, and then we get Brawler from Maokai. Since we're running a lot of traits, Ross is going to be a pretty good addition here. And that's pretty much what our team's going to be about. So now into playing the comp. Pretty much only play this if you can find 3 Primordian by stage 2-1. If not, you're just not going to get the most power from this. I know that's a bit of a high roll start or whatever, but you need to meet conditions when you play each comp. The earlier you get Primordians, the more unit copies you generate, which gives you econ or even potentially the units you care about. I'd say by the very latest, if you don't have it by stage 2-3, do not play this comp, but I prefer only playing this if I have it on stage 2-1. I feel like you'll have better angles to go elsewhere in most of your games if you don't get it that early. Other things to consider is artifact items are great in this comp. Just because you're playing a bunch of melee rerolls and artifacts just complement that really, really well, they're pretty much handpicked for those comps. But the leveling pattern is a bit awkward in this build. So pretty much you want to wait to naturally level to level 5 on stage 3-2, and then you just start slow rolling there. The reason why is because you're looking for 1 and 2 cost units at the same time, and also some 3 costs. So if you roll all your gold at level 4, it's going to be really difficult to finish off the comp. Also during stage 3, you should prioritize playing some other rogue to complement Briar, as Briar is going to be pretty much your main carry for most of the game. You're going to be prioritizing her items and all that. But once you 3-star everything, that's going to happen sometime in stage 4. 2 Rogue, 2 Nova going to be your priority to fit in, and then Ross is going to be great for adding a nice little stat bonus. Some other tips along the way is do not build precision in this comp, because you do not need to critically strike because you're running Akali with Nova buff. And then of course we already talked about the little Briar trick at the start. If you want to reference any of the stuff we've covered so far, the website bunnymuffins.lol is updated all the time with the latest comps, and also has a lot of other guides at the top that you can see over here. We're going to be updating the opener guide and posting a video about it. sometime later this weekend. But let's move on into the A tier with the Vex Fast 9 comp. So Vex did get nerfed a little bit, but she's still very strong. I mean, if you're able to Fast 9, it's always going to be a viable option because, I mean, just look at this board here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 different carries to play around with. Not carries, but legendaries. If you pretty much just have infinite gold at the start of the game and you're win streaking, you got to make the most of those situations, and comps like this really take advantage of that. It's not going to happen that often, but if you ever do have the ability to get to Fast 9 comfortably, this is kind of a sample board that you can play. Of course, you still need Nunu as one of the tanks because tanks just are hard to come by. They are going to be changing Morgana into a 4-cost unit next patch just because there are that few tanks in the set. I don't get it. Did they like forget to print tanks when they made the set? Maybe they said something about it. I may have missed it. But the main carry in this comp is going to be Vex. I like doing the Rageblade Hextech Gunblade combo. What it does is it allows you to stack up and then kind of scale during the fight with the Hextech Gunblade. Like Rageblade and Archangel's Hextech Gunblade, those 3 items always work really well together because scaling during a fight just complements Hextech Gunblade so well. But obviously in this comp, we're focused on the Rageblade, and then Giant Slayer is really nice to not get stuck on tanks, and then top it off with the Hextech Gunblade. After that, you want a secondary carry, either Fiora or Graves. Both options work really, really well. Pretty much if you're building Graves, you want to prioritize getting like Assault Frame. If not, like Melt Through, Grab Booster, then Buckshot. But I'm pretty sure Assault Frame is going to be one of the best choices. After that, on Graves, you want to prioritize CC immunity. So that could be either like an Edge Knight or a Quicksilver. And then something like Fiora is just going to take the standard melee attack damage items. Another way to get into this comp is by playing the Vanguard Leblanc comp, which we'll cover in just a bit. They use pretty much the same items. So if you ever play that comp and then you find yourself at level 9, you could slowly pivot into time. But yeah, for augments, you want just like econ augments or something that can help you win streak early. Both of those are going to work out just fine there. Next build up we have is going to be Urgot Reroll. This comp is really just focused as like a 3-cost reroll, so you're going to be wanting Urgot, Maokai, Aurora, and Rost, but a main pre is going to be put on Urgot. I mean, the comp is named after him after all. And this comp is pretty fun, but you want to only play it if you get an artifact item, because artifact items absolutely make Urgot bonkers busted. I mean, we could just take a look at it here. Urgot 3-star items, and then take a look at what we see. Obviously, we're going to see Quicksilver, Giant Slayer, and Infinity Edge as some of the top items. We have that built in already, but if we just look at some of the artifact items, let's go down to artifacts here. We'll do Diamond Plus for now, get a bigger sample size there. You'll see that something like a Prowler's Claw is absolutely busted. But literally any of the artifacts that have anything to do with Urgot are going to be extremely, extremely good. The only issue that you run into when you play this comp, though, is that you want artifact items, but you also want to 3-star everything, which is kind of difficult to do because we only get so many augments. So if you use one of the augments on getting an artifact item, you're going to have lower econ, and it's going to be hard to hit everything 3-star. But pretty much, if you ever get Urgot from like a orb drop early on, it is something to consider to play this. And if you do get an artifact item, just replace the Giant Slayer. It should be like IE, Quicksilver, plus the artifact. Apart from that, you want to follow the 3-cost leveling pattern. It's pretty much just getting to level 7 on stage 3-5, stabilizing around Urgot 2-star. And I'm telling you, on level 7, or like late stage 3, Urgot 2 wins every single fight. He really only starts losing around like middle of stage 4. But if you have the right amount of econ, you'll be able to hit Urgot 3, maybe sometime early stage 5, and then you'll smash the 4-cost players who really can't get past 2-star that easily. By the way, always use the mech upgrade on Urgot, and then once you hit level 8, use the mech upgrade on the Mighty Mech. That's pretty much why you see so few units on your screen here. It's because when you upgrade the mechs, they take up an extra unit slot. Another thing to note is that getting tank items on Maokai is the second priority after Urgot, and then Aurora items are going to be focused on last. Just keep in mind whenever you're playing this comp, you still always need Armor Shred and Anti-Heal, so even Shroud Maokai, Morello Aurora, and you're going to be good to go. And now, I know what everyone's saying. I know Akali gives Critical Strike to Urgot with the Nova bonus. You still want Infinity Edge despite that, because Urgot's attack speed is so slow that if he does not crit every single time, he's going to be doing nothing. So that's kind of why you want to stack crit on him, even though Akali already makes his ability crit. The data supports this. We got the Urgot with the Akali here. You still want IE on him. It's rare. There's always one comp that does that, where they kind of break the rules, and this is going to be one of those comps in this set. Next comp up we have is going to be the Twisted Fate reroll. This comp is pretty solid right now just because reroll is really, really, really good in general. Like, I think we're going to go through 3 different 1-cost reroll comps in a row right now. But this one's built around a bunch of the Stargazers. and also the Nova unit. So it's going to be, well, pretty much like every unit in the comp wants to be 3-starred. But Twisted Fate, Caitlyn, Talon, Jax, Aatrox, Gwen, you're going to try to 3-star all of them. You're never going to 3-star Ross, just because you're going to run out of gold by then, and also other people go Ross. So Ross is just incredibly difficult to 3-star. But if you can, you want him too. But pretty much if you can get Prismatic Ticket or anything that gives you a lot of rerolls, this comp's going to be absolutely amazing. The duplicators are nice also, but the rerolls are really what makes this comp push up to the next level. The reason why is because duplicators are good if you want 1 or 2 3-stars, but this one runs so many, so rerolls are just much more valuable. If you ever get the Medallion Stargazer, it makes a comp incredibly powerful to play. Pretty much S tier if you get it, just because 3 stars just really benefit that Stargazer. Like, we could take a look at it here. If we go to Medallion, it'll show that allies in empowered hexes gain 12% damage amp, which increases by 5% for every 3-star ally. So yeah, you want it, you want it. You can play the different Stargazer, but like that one is just so much better than anything else that it just shoots it from like B tier to S tier. That's why this comp's kind of in the A tier. It's like in between, If you meet all the conditions, it's S tier, but if you don't, then it's probably just like a very mediocre comp. But pretty much just play this as you would with any 1-cost reroll. You just go to stage 3-1, you roll down for copies, econ back up, slow roll, and then hit everything. If you're close to 3-starring one of your guys with items, do it. But the general priority for items is going to be something like Twisted Fate, Jax, Talon, Caitlyn, then Gwen. After all, the comp is named Twisted Fate Reroll, so you got to prioritize him. And then tanks are just super important in every single comp. But yeah, overall, pretty solid build. You don't need Armor Shred because you have Aatrox from Nova, so you really just need a Sunfire Cape for utility, and yeah, that's pretty much how your game is going to go. And also you have Fate Weaver with Twisted Fate, so you also don't need Critical Strike on him or Caitlyn, which is nice. Next build up we have is going to be the Leona Teemo reroll. This one's a very funny comp to play because Leona's build's very funny. The triple stone plate's going to be absolutely nice on her. And then with 6 Vanguards stacking items on Teemo, Teemo just becomes unstoppable. But you do the same 1-cost reroll pattern here. Teemo's got the item trio that I talked about before, where you just infinitely stack and heal up. And then you could throw utility units on it could be literally anyone. Like instead of Sunfire Ionic, it could also be Void Staff Morello on one of your other units. Doesn't really matter. But because you're running 6 Vanguard, it makes a lot of sense to throw it on Nasus because he will end up living a pretty long time. But apart from that, the way you want to play this comp is start with a lot of copies of Leona and Teemo at the start of the game. You absolutely need stacking items on Teemo such as Gwynsu's, and then Defensive Arbiter is pretty much required. Getting something like scaling HP on mana spend's pretty good, but you absolutely need Defensive Arbiter because Leona is going to be so much more powerful with it, it's not even funny. Once you get her, you want to be playing 3 Arbiter, just to stack it as much as possible, because that's going to be how you scale into the late game. But yeah, pretty much same thing as before with the other 1-cost reroll. Roll on 3-1, get Teemo, Leona copies. Nasus is a luxury, but you don't absolutely need Nasus 3. But it's nice to keep copies of him if you can. And then ideally try to hit 3-star of Teemo and Leona by stage 3-5. Very latest, you have to all in on stage 4-1, because you have to win every round in stage 4 when you are playing 1-cost reroll. Well, not every round, but at least the early rounds. Because if you don't, you're just going to fall too far behind and get outscaled by everyone else in the game. But once you hit everything, just hyper level, play 6 Vanguard, play 3 Arbiter, and that's going to be your day. In the super late game, you can replace some of the Arbiters with some random legendary unit, but overall this comp is very easy to play, and I highly recommend it. By the way, if you do get the mana regen Arbiter on Leona, consider building an adaptive helm because it just gets her more mana and then you just get more HP whenever you scale with it. Next build up we have is going to be the Cho'Gath Ezreal reroll. This comp's pretty interesting because you get to play around with the time breakers a bunch. A lot of people don't get to do that. They just play for econ. But in this comp, you could actually play for the 4 timebreaker version, which is pretty nice. But because you're doing 1-cost reroll with Ezreal carry, Cho'Gath makes a lot of sense to pair up with this because he's a brawler and Pantheon's also a brawler. So getting both of these to 3 stars is going to be pretty nice. Ezreal's build isn't too complicated. You just want to do the Shojin IE plus 3rd item. It could be Deathblade, Giant Slayer, Striker's Flail, anything like that. And then you just do regular tank items on Cho'Gath, utility items on one of your other tanks. But pretty much none of that matters. The only thing that really matters is if you can stack your Cho'Gath early, because that's the only way to make this comp work. In fact, both Ezreal and Cho'Gath need to stack. So if you're able to win streak with Ezreal Cho'Gath and get a ton of takedowns and stuff, you're going to be in really good shape. If you can't, you're going to go 8th. So again, none of the other stuff we talked about really matters if you can't get the stacks, because that's how the comp is going to essentially just fail you. We can take a look at the win rate here. I normally don't like seeing the bar charts of the placements and stuff because normally it's just the average that matters. But in this case, it's pretty important because yeah, if you get to stack, you get first. If you don't get to stack, you get 8th. That's like how critical this is. And if you couldn't tell already, like it averages more towards a bottom 4 than it does to a top 4. But again, it really just depends if you can stack or not. So you have to absolutely make sure you're playing this in the right situation and absolutely make sure that you could actually get your comp going. But other than that, you play this 1-cost reroll as the same as all the other ones. You just do the stage 3-1 roll down. I would say the one difference here is that you want to be a little bit more aggressive because again, like getting wins is just so important with this comp, more so than any other 1-cost reroll that we've gone through so far. After you hit them, level up, play more time breakers, play more brawlers, and that's pretty much going to be your day. By the way, Yasuo's Cosmic Hex is really good on stage 2 for this comp because it allows Cho'Gath to scale even faster. So that's one little fun thing to kind of keep in mind. But next build up we have is going to be Stargazer Xayah. This one's going to be just a generic 4-cost comp. Very good option to kind of default into if you have AD items, or sorry, like the attack speed items. But you do prefer either like the Serpent, Boar, or Altar Stargazer constellations. After that, you just run Xayah plus Rammus, and then just pretty much fill out the rest of your board with synergies that complement them. So for Xayah, it's going to be 2 Stargazer plus Sniper. For Rammus, it's going to be Bastion and the Meeples. The best part about this comp is that you have 2 different options for your main tank, though. Like, I prefer Rammus in this build, but you could also do Nunu if you happen to hit Nunu 2-star first. But pretty much what I like to do is put the main tank items on Rammus and then put the mana items onto the Nunu. I like Nunu getting his stun off more, and then I think Rammus is just a little bit more generically tanky than Nunu. Be the case, right? Because if one tank has a tank ability and the other one has a stun ability or like a knockup, the tank ability guy is going to be a bit better, right? Not better, but more tanky. Essentially, whoever you 2-star first is who you're going to be rolling with for most of the game. But ideally, if they're both the same star level, then you would itemize the Rammus first. Well, let's think about when you would play this comp. So you'd play this comp if you have Tempo AD opener or one of the Stargazer constellations we talked about before. Another time you might want to play this is if you get one of the fast 8 augments. So if you get like Epoch or like Slammin or any of the gain 2 XP every round augments, this comp's going to be really nice because they just really help Fast 8 out a ton. And then eventually they will also help you get to level 9 because you do want to play at least some legendaries, right? Bard and Jhin are here. You could play one of the generic ones afterwards, maybe like a Morgana. And that's kind of how this comp works. So it's a very linear comp. It's like very standard TFT. This is probably one of the best comps for that. The only weird thing about this is that you need a lot of bow items. Like Xayah needs 3 bows. Kraken, Rageblade, absolutely mandatory. Third item, it could be kind of anything. I like doing the double Kraken, but you could honestly run anything as a third item. Bard for utility, and then Jhin just like this standard generic crit build. You do need some sort of armor shred in this build though, so if you do get the Last Whisper, just drop it on Gnar early on in the game. Just put Gnar near your Xayah, and yeah, they'll be good to go there. Another thing is that Jhin also, fun fact, reduces armor and magic resistance of everyone. It's not as much as having like one of the pen items, but if you're ever missing a pen item, for some reason, 1, you already made a mistake, but 2, you could kind of try to save it by playing Jhin. I forget what the trait's called. It's called like Eradicator or something like that. It's one of Jin's like innate traits. Next build up, we have another 4-cost comp. This one's going to be a Meeple Bastion build. And this one is a really fun comp to play because, I don't know, Riven's just one of my favorites. So you got a melee carry, you got a tank, you got an AD carry, you got an AP carry. And then with all that, there's probably some JP Morgan joke in here because you got Riven, you got cannons, you got Fizz as well. So, but pretty much what this comp needs is a lot of items. You got like 4 different people you want to itemize. And coincidentally, item augments also help you win streak a ton, which generally helps fast aiding a lot. It's not mandatory, but it does help. But pretty much what I like to do whenever I play this in the early game is try to build 1 carry at a time. It doesn't matter who you get first, but if you get the melee items first, you could maybe like throw them on Briar or something like that and use her as an early game carry to get into Riven later, and then focus on building a lot of melee items. Then after that, you build some tank items, and then you build Corki items last. Alternatively, you could also build Corki items first, finish off Corki, then build tank, then build Riven. That's kind of the easiest way to look at items. Like, I wouldn't say one is like that much more important than the other. They are both like very important. So you pretty much just kind of focus on whoever you can first. By the way, the reason why you don't want to split building both of them at the same time is because getting a 3-item carry is much better than splitting your items up, because TFT is a very like vertical game rather than horizontal, meaning that you want to concentrate all your power into 1 or 2 guys rather than like making everyone stronger. That's just how TFT's been. That's how items work essentially. And that's why you kind of want to build it in that way. Other things to consider in this comp is if you get like Meeple emblem, it's really nice to get like a Meeple Riven that could replace one of your items. But other items to consider might be something like Rogue on Corki. The effect's not that great on him, but Rogue does give like crit and damage amp, so it still gives him some stats that you want. And it allows you to have enough items to kind of itemize everyone up. So if you do get random emblems from like Trait Tree or whatever, those are the 2 that are kind of usable. But honestly, there are a lot of random usable emblems in this build. It just kind of depends on what you get. But I like this build a lot. You could probably hard force this every single game. Like this set's very conditional. You don't want to be hard forcing stuff, but if you had to, this comp and the next comp we're gonna go over are kind of hard forceable every game. Vanguard Flex. This one's with ideally LeBlanc, but this could pivot into Vex later on. Pretty much you just want to do Rageblade, Gunblade, and then have like a boatload of frontliners, and you're pretty much good to go there. You could also play around with Nami with LeBlanc, so it could be like LeBlanc Nami or LeBlanc Karma. Both versions work, and then you pivot into legendaries later. Keep in mind, like this comp, it's not like a final endgame board. A lot of people want final endgame boards, but you know what the best board is? It's 3-star Bard, 3-star Jhin, 3-star Shen, Fiora, Graves, everything on the same board. Like that's the best final board, right? Unfortunately, we can't get that all the time, so we need to use boards like Vanguard Flex in order to get to the legendaries later on. So this build is a great building block into any Vex build because of that, because you use the same items, but you can reliably get this on level 8. You got a bunch of 4 costs, you got some 2 costs, you got some 1 costs. They all have some sort of synergies with each other. That's pretty much how you're going to be building this. But what I like to do with this is I like to check my Arbiter first early on, and if I get like a nice AP or attack speed generating Arbiter, then I consider going for this build. If I built Rageblade early on, maybe I don't commit to AP or AD yet, because a lot of people can use the Rageblade. Like you could go for LeBlanc, for example. See what other items you get, and then commit maybe around stage 3. That's also possible. But pretty much a lot of these like Rageblade 4-cost comps, they can be played from a lot of different spots. But pretty much with this build, the same fast state rule applies. Like if you get XP augments, it's really nice. But if you get item augments and win streak instead, that's also fine too. You're pretty much just setting up your entire early game to do everything in your power to have as much gold as possible on level 8 to guarantee that you hit 2-star Nunu and 2-star one of your carries. Because if you can get that, you can pretty much go into any other late game build that you want. And again, use this as a building block to get into it. That's why flex is important, because when you flex, you get to save a lot of your gold. It's kind of like if you're grocery shopping, and if you know how to cook a lot of different recipes, you could go to the grocery store, just see what's on sale and buy what's on sale. If you do that, you could buy a lot more meals, right? And then save up for like whatever luxury ingredient that you like. I don't know what everyone's eating nowadays, but for me, it might be like a dry aged steak. So if I go to the store, you need LeBlanc. Like maybe that's like chicken or something like that. I need to eat chicken every day of the week. But the Karma or Nami, that could be like my vegetable. You know, like maybe Nami's an avocado and Karma is like a carrot or something, right? Like this is a bunny channel after all. Like if carrots are on sale, I'm going to be buying the carrots and then ignoring the avocados. But if the avocado's on sale, then maybe I'd go for the avocado, ignore the carrots. So that's kind of how that works. Because I'll save money through buying whatever's on sale, I'll be able to afford the dry aged steak maybe like a month from now, you know? The dry aged steak being like legendaries such as Vex. Okay, I'm going to stop with this. It's going a little too deep, but that's pretty much how it works. You play the budget comps, the flex budget comps. Instead of rolling 50 gold to hit your exact comps, if you're playing like, I don't know, 6 Dark Star, if you're hard forcing, if you're flexing, you only need to roll like 30 gold to hit a reasonable board. Then you could reach level 9 easier and then get into your late game that way. That's kind of how these boards compete. Like flex boards are never meant to beat a lot of the vertical comps or like the very strict like reroll comps where you can't really deviate from whatever you're building. However, the way you win is just by doing it on a budget. You're going to be doing the A word, adapting to whatever's in your shop, and then use whatever you get to hit your super late game later on because you'll just have more gold for that. So that's kind of how this board kind of works. It also has the added benefit of being a Rageblade comp so that you could flex it between AD and AP build. So it's even more flexible than what I'm giving it credit for. Next build up we have is going to be the B tiers. Nothing too crazy going on here. Like, all these comps are still going to be playable. Like, if you really want to play Veigar, like, you definitely can. But I would kind of stay closer to the S tier comps out there, because the S and A tier comps out there, like, you definitely can do something like let's say a misfortune reroll. If you get like a ton of misfortunes, like, yeah, sure, go for it. But I just feel like a lot of the other comps are just a bit more powerful right now, and they have the potential to like bump up a tier. Like, a lot of these comps, they don't have that like nice little bump bonus. Like, for example, Twisted Fate reroll, if you get the medallion constellation, you get a nice little bump bonus, right? If you get artifact items on Urgot reroll, another nice little bump bonus where it goes from like A to S tier. So that's kind of why I like this tier list in this order right now. But obviously, like, if you get an absolutely bonkers nuts Lulu reroll start, or like misfortune reroll start, whatever it is, you can definitely go for it. But if we're comparing like Jhin Fast 9 to Vex Fast 9, I mean, one comp is just superior to the other, right? Like, in a Fast 9, you're just trying to get to level 9. I know that sounds kind of silly, but that's really what it is. And then when you do that, you're just trying to hit whatever you want, right? But ideally, you go for the better version, which is going to be Vex in this case. Like, Vex is just more powerful than Jhin on this patch. Jhin is also contested by a bunch of other comps right now, such as a Darkstar comp, so it's going to be harder to get Jhin 2-star. So that's kind of why this tier list is built in that way. It's not that you can't play any of the B tiers, it's just that the S and A tiers are just going to be a lot easier to play, a lot cheaper to play, and you pretty much just get more bang for your buck. But if you want to learn more about TFT, head on over to the website bunnymuffins.lol, where you get the full guide for free, along with a bunch of other different guides on the site. But let me know down in the comments if you have any questions. Like, we also have some other stuff, such as like the hero augment comps down here. But that's going to be it for me today. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.